Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Well, it's a bit of a lengthy title. Let go of that snake. Dilemmas and possible answers when trying to conserve nature by educating the public. And just a very short version of the story here on the title slide. This is Muhammad. He's a shepherd in the Judean desert, near in the Hokania Valley, near the Dead Sea. And I was conducting. I was part of an ecological survey. I'm a reptile specialist. I was looking for reptiles in the Hokania Valley area back in March of this year, and we were looking under stones and in cracks in the wadis and in the shrubs and looking for lizards and snakes and whatnot. And this guy comes up to one of the teams and says, I know, what are you looking for? Are you looking for snakes? I know a water hole that has a whole bunch of snakes in it, and they're live, and you can save them if you want to. And he took us there. There was only one snake, not snakes plural, but it was a very beautiful Thescopus dala, which is a very pretty cat-eyed snake. And at the beginning, he was very timid about handling the animal. Even though he was the one who came up to us with the idea, come save the snake, release it from this pit so it doesn't die on the bottom of the pit. And when he saw my handling of the snake and not getting bitten, and we explained that it's not, it does have venom, but it's not deadly, it's not dangerous to humans, blah, blah, blah. And he got up the nerve, and look at that smile. Look at that smile on this young man's face. And I'm sure that he's going to think twice about throwing rocks or a stick at a snake when he finds snakes, and he finds snakes all the time because he's in the field all the time. He works with the goats and the sheep. He's a shepherd, so he meets the animals in the field all the time. And the idea for protecting and conserving nature for future generations, for me as a researcher, who's also considers himself an educator, it's impossible to conserve nature without educating the public about the nature that we're trying to conserve. And this is one of the most important aspects of our work. If people don't understand what's at stake here, and why nature has to be conserved, and why is it worthy of conservation, we're not going to be able to conserve it. But as they say in English, you've got to crack a few eggs to make an omelet. And I'm sorry to all the vegans. No offense to anyone. It's just a saying. That's why it's also in brackets. Meaning, of course, that sometimes for the greater good, we have to look at we have to. We decide that we have to cause some damage or some injury or maybe even death to some animals in order for the greater good to conserve entire populations and maybe entire ecosystems for future generations of the animals, of the wildlife themselves, not only future generations of humans who enjoy these beautiful, I think they're beautiful snakes, etc., etc. Not everybody believes that, of course. So when are we, as conservationists, forced to take an animal's freedom or even its life, and under what circumstances? First of all, there's temporary, I call it temporary incarceration for educational purposes. Like I'm walking around with a group and I find a snake or a lizard or maybe even a beetle, and I want to educate the group and show them and teach them, and I place that beetle or that snake under temporary arrest, right? I'm holding it in my hand or in a jar or in a box and showing it and then releasing it. So this is relatively not a very not too violent situation. There's a collection of specimens for taxonomic and systematic studies, museum specimens that is, and this is a very, very final situation because you kill the specimen in order to collect it. And that, fortunately, I'm not going to be talking about that today. It's a very touchy subject. There's captive breeding nuclei. If you have populations of animals that are in threat of extinction and you want to reintroduce specimens, and all of you know examples for this. I don't have to, I probably don't have to name any names, but you know that the animals in the captive breeding nuclei are, I mean, it's not really fun being a factory for offspring that will be reintroduced into nature, but we're thinking about the greater good, right? And there's the study of captive specimens. Sometimes 3 and 4 are combined to study the life history of species in order to better understand the processes that will help us to conserve them for the future. And there are, of course, extreme situations in which we have to cull explosive species because not always it's not always possible to. Well, you talked about mitigating food resources for jackals, for instance. So usually you call it a knee-jerk reflex or solution to cull. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. It has to be all done, of course, within a scientific framework to see if it works and if it can work. And there's, of course, eradicating of invasive species, which is very similar, almost the same, but not exactly the same. So, like I said, fortunately, I'm going to be talking about just this first line here, the temporary incarceration of animals. And if I look at, as an educator, as a guide, as a teacher, lecturer, whatever, I'm going into the field and I want to show wildlife to a group of students or to an audience that I have with me. I can use graphics like drawings and photographs. I can use museum material. For instance, here's a skeleton of a tortoise. Stuffed animals' skins or sloughed skins of snakes and other reptiles. I can show them captive animals in a zoo or a zoological garden. And we can observe them in situ. Some of you probably know this guy up here. It's an interesting specimen. Yoav Motro, for those of you who don't recognize, counting ducks in the annual waterfowl census. So we can observe the creatures in situ, in nature, without capturing them. And we can capture them and show them and then release them, of course. Like this silly person here, you can't see, it's probably too small, but I have these 3 spaghetti-like things in my hands, which are snakes. Now, there are pros and cons to presenting animals in situ in the field and capturing them for this purpose. First of all, you have to get permits. There's the legal issue. You have to do it according to all the laws of the law. You have to be skilled and experienced, or else you won't get a permit, of course. I mean, in a perfect world. The training is often very complex, and you sometimes need months or even years to get to the level that you can do this work, for instance, with rodents, which is the example I bring here. Some animals, not necessarily these rodents, but some animals are dangerous, so you have to take care that you don't get hurt, envenomated by a snake or a scorpion or something else, and nobody in the group that's with you, that you're trying to educate, you don't want to educate them how to get bitten or stung or you know, of course. And there's, of course, more interesting for us when we're talking about compassionate conservation, the risk of harm to the animals. And of course, animal rights and animal welfare, what you call the animal protection issues. But there are also very, very important, very strong pros to presenting animals in the wild. First of all, you get eye-level direct interaction of the people, and children are the best example. When you show a kid a lizard or a snake, and you always see this in groups, there are kids that are that naturally gravitate toward the animal and want to hold it, want to pet it, want to touch it, and so forth. And those are very timid, very scared, even petrified. It's like, oh my God, he's really holding on to that thing. And many times you get kids or grown-ups to really warm up and to the situation, and you actually see them metamorphosize in front of you into being less scared, and by getting knowledge, by meeting the animal at eye level. There's the direct context of the animals to their natural habitat. You can talk about their adaptations and show them in situ. there's an inevitable emotional connection. For me, it's obvious that I do have an emotional connection with these animals, but you see that the people usually meeting them just like that in the wild and then releasing them because it's a wild animal, that does something even to grown-ups, even to cynical grown-ups, and to kids, definitely. My girls usually want to take everything home. Although they now have the mantra that, oh, it's a wild animal, we have to release it. Dad, you have to release it, but let me release it, and so forth. There's potential for hands-on experience only if it's appropriate. You won't take a soft-scaled viper and let someone release it by hand, of course. But in other cases, you can have your little helpers or the not little, grown-ups. They can help you with measurements and with release. And so they get personal and practical involvement in conservation projects this way. Now, there are many, many different aspects that you have to take into consideration when you prepare yourself as an educator for a field trip in which you may or may not have hands-on experience with capturing animals, live animals. And you have to think about the age of the audience, how much time do you have, do you have time to really stop now for 10 minutes and show and let everybody look at this snake or whatever it is that you caught? Or don't you have time? You have to get somewhere. What are the aims of the trip, and does this really serve the aims of the trip? Cultural and ethnic issues in different groups. You have different aspects because of cultural and ethnic background that you have to tread very, very carefully sometimes, not to get yourself in trouble. Was there any pre-trip preparation? Did they have any theoretical knowledge from you or from someone else before you took them into the field and started showing them animals? And I'll go really, really quickly through some examples without listing all of these things. But for instance, preschoolers primary school, sorry. Primary school and preschoolers, this and this are my personal favorites on this slide. But for no particular reason, except for biological genetic relationships. And you can see that kids really have a very good time when you take them out into nature. And here's a lizard and here's a snake. It's a bit difficult with this resolution, sorry. But you have to explain with proper language to younger children. The explanations should be short, as they should be when I'm here in front of you, because you've had a long day and a good lunch, I've heard. So I don't want to exhaust you too much. Lots of guiding aids, lots of, you can have stuff that you have in advance in your bag or in like a bag of tricks, so to speak. You have to think about potential stuff that can be touched, of course legally, like touching the sand, and thinking about how is this snake or this lizard adapted to this kind of texture, to this kind of substrate. And you have to get feedback from the group if you see something is not working. With little kids, with young kids, it's very, very important to go with the flow. If they're not with you on the same page, then you should turn the page, or else you're in a bad place. And you should try to use as many senses as possible. It has to be like, smell this plant and look at and feel this texture and so forth. And it has to be a lot of fun, and then, okay, no problem. With high schoolers, it has to be much more, especially when it's like biology students or environmental studies students. It has to be scientific. You have to talk about methodology. You have to show them how to collect data about the animals that you're finding in the field and working with them. But still, they have a lot of fun. They have fun getting their picture taken with a snake or with in this case, a tortoise. And they learn in spite of themselves. They have a learning experience. Besides the fun. Of course, if it's training for guides and teachers, you have a different set of things that you want to give through the meeting with animals in the field. And one of the important aspects is, like we say in Pesach, thou shalt tell thy son, you're teaching someone who's going to teach someone else, who's going to teach someone else, and so forth. And you have to be very minded to that. I'll just jump to this general points, general important points about capturing animals and handling them in the field. With any audience, regardless of age or the time that you have or don't have, you have to act respectfully to the animals, show that you're handling them properly, avoid at all costs injury, explain and accentuate why am I allowed to do this and you're not allowed to do this, legal-wise, etc. Record the data and make a point for the group that you are recording the data. This is going to go to some sort of scientific use, even if you're just collecting it now and you don't know what you're going to do with it later. Don't waste the animal's time and release it as soon as possible, but only at the correct time and place for release. Just a couple of examples. There are animals that don't pose any legal problems when you're outside the boundaries of a nature reserve, like invertebrates, which more than 90% in Israel are not protected by law, so you can handle them freely, and there's only the animal rights and welfare issues only. And on the other hand, reptiles, which is my expertise, like I said, you have to have a permit even when you're outside the nature reserve because they're all protected by law. You can show them and take photographs and so forth, but you can't handle them unless you have a permit. Of course, I had to show you this picture, how you can see these very, very different reactions, which one is, oh, that's cool, snake, can I touch that? And the other was like, well, Dad, what are we doing here? You said it's going to be fun. And in the end, she calmed down. But you can see, this is the immediate reaction. This is just to show you that these two bars here, these two sets of bars here, these are primary school students who went in Nitzanim sands on a field trip. And before the field trip, 22% thought that there were many animals in the sand dunes, and after the field trip, 60% thought, and 60% thought there were few animals, and it changed in the answers, in the after answers. And this is something that hasn't been studied enough, and this is something that if I want to prove to you and other audiences in the future that it is important to take people out in the field and show them animals at eye level, we have to do more of these studies, more serious studies, of course. So the possible guidelines, and this is the end, my friend. I always have to ask myself when I'm working in the field, am I acting within the law? Do I have the proper training to handle this animal that I want to show? Do I have the proper tools to do it with me? Is there potential harm to the animal, and how can I minimize this to zero? Is the audience containable? If I have an audience that's not going to be that's not undisciplined, and I find a snake, I'm not going to waste time now trying to show them a snake. I'm going to release it or not capture it at all and just move forward. So containable in terms of behavior of the group. And how unique is this opportunity? Maybe they're never going to, never is a big word, but maybe the next chance they have to meet this kind of animal with someone who can show them that it's not dangerous, not deadly and so forth, and is worthwhile conserving, maybe this is a very unique opportunity and I should seize it. And I have to ask the most important question, will this boost conservation? Will these kids or grown-ups or whatever, are they going to be our, so to speak, ambassadors for conserving nature? And is this experience going to have any dent in their outview and their future behavior? That's maybe the most important. Thanks.
Thank you, Boaz. It's a very important issue.